What's going on, everybody? I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, that's Reckless Rex Ruger's alter ego. And you would be correct. The boxing backdrop is here, but make no mistake, this is an episode of SCUM. Just too lazy to change the backdrop. But nevertheless, you are still looking at Rex Ruger, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. There should be no mistaking that. You're looking at the luscious locks, the smoldering good looks, and you're saying, yep, it is undeniable that I am definitively looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, Mr. Wop, Bop, Loo, Bop, Wop, bam, bam, shazam, hot damn. Woo, I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. It has been a minute since I have done a non-boxing podcast, but I have a special guest, and I'm pumped because he's here, and I cannot wait. Let's go. It has been a long time, and I've ran down every single member of the Fun-Loving Criminals except for Fast. And now we've made it happen, man. Uncle Frank and Naim, and now you, man. I have now completely come full circle, man.
There it is. There it is. You got the three. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. And I want to make sure that that it doesn't go unnoticed, man, that you are a remarkable front man, but I am the offspring of David Lee Roth Jr. You should be able to tell this.
I do. I can tell right now. I mean, I see you got the look, the fierceness.
Yeah.
A good thing.
I like that. The fierceness.
Yeah.
And I love the backdrop. Like you're just loitering on a corner in New York City.
That's what I'm doing. Well, I think this one was actually the photo that was taken was when we were in Philly, of all places.
Okay.
So shout out to Sylvester Stallone. But
always shout out to Sylvester Stallone, because as you know, I pull double duty doing SCUM and a boxing podcast. And I just told people, man, make no mistake, this is the music podcast, but the boxing backdrop is still back there.
I see it. No, it looks good. It looks good.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool, man. Well, it's nice to finally talk to you. I saw the ones you did with Frank and Naim, which were hilarious. So
yeah, those guys are great. Those guys are great. They really are
great guys. I mean, I've been very lucky to be brothers with them for a long time now. So it's awesome.
And first of all, I just want to let it sink in and marinate, man, that next year will be 30 years of Come Find Yourself, man. First of all, I want to ask, because I know you have a new album coming out in August, man, but a lot of bands will do something special for these landmark albums. Is there anything that you could talk about or elaborate? Is there anything in the future, because it's 30 years of the debut album?
Well, I mean, that's a long time. I'll tell you, 3 decades, and I remember those days well when we were writing that first record and recording it, and the whole adventure of being on tour for almost 2 years supporting it. We did a tour for the 25th anniversary, I believe, or maybe the 20th anniversary of Confind Yourself, where we played the whole album start to finish. So I'm not sure we'll go out and do the 30th anniversary. I mean, we're all into anniversaries. We did one for 100% Colombian,
right?
Which a couple years ago, which was great. And there's talk of doing other albums, but I think we really want to concentrate on new music and giving the fans what they want, because it does seem like it's been a long time since we've done a full-length album. We released 2 EPs over the past couple years, but to do a full-length album was something that was really amazing, that Frank and I said, let's just do it,
What's the creative process like when you guys get together, man? Because you are the only original member of this band, even though Frank has been in there 20 plus years. What's the creative process like when you guys get together and make new music? Does somebody take the reins? Does somebody have the lion's share of the ideas? Is it very collaborative when you guys get together?
It's definitely a collaboration. I know that when Frank joined the band in 2003, I mean, he was working with us, as the previous drummer Mackey's drum tech for a while. But when Frank joined the band for the Living in the City album, I was living in London at the time, and we got together in my studio, and it was you know, even from back in the early days, when you have music that's like sample based music, or at least it's built upon sample foundations, there's usually one guy who's pushing all the buttons and doing a lot of the manipulation of sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just always been me. So Frank was never trying to like step on my toes with that. He kind of, you know, he lets me do what I'm going to do. And he's a great addition to the band, always has been, because, you know, he's like this melodic genius. And, you know, most importantly, recently, he's been really at the forefront of doing a lot of the lyrical input. You know, I sort of take the lyrical ideas he has and I sort of Americanize them a bit, or, you know, make a bit more New Yorkese, or, I mean, but really with this new album, it's, you know, it's not really a New York album. We don't live in New York anymore. And, you know, I'm the only one who was from New York. So it just seemed kind of phony to do an album that was, you know, all New York songs and stories. We've done that for the past 30 years, but yeah, it's great being in the studio. I mean, Frank and I live in different towns, so usually I'll be in my home studio and I'll come up with beats and stuff and send them. Some songs will be 90% done. Some songs will be 50% done. And we just sort of build it up from there. And, you know, it works really well. I mean, it's much easier when there's two people creating something than three, you know? So and, you know, not to exclude Naim, because obviously he's been a really important part of the band. And, you know, his guitar work on this new record's amazing, because we really wanted him to go to town with it. You know, on the Roosevelt Sessions EP, he played around a lot, but not so much. And then on the Capistrano EP, he did a bit more and got a bit more funky, threw in some more rock flavors. But this record's raw, and I think that's something that the fans are going to like, appreciate, and probably be a bit surprised by, because, you know, they heard the jazz stylings on Roosevelt. And they heard the kind of more funky hip hoppy bit, you know, beats and stuff on the Capistrano. But this is like a rock record. And so we're always trying to stick to the formula of Fun Loving Criminals, but at the same time, you know, not make any rules and just see where it goes. And I think we're really happy with how it came out. So we're really excited.
Now, I am an upstate New Yorker, and I'm wondering, man, because you are from there, man, are there things that you still long for or miss from New York? Obviously, you're not getting pizza the way you used to get. There's no way.
No, we're getting Italian pizza, not New York pizza. I mean, and there's a couple places that are good. I got a local park. I was just talking with my daughter today about this, how it's like there's a good friend of ours named Giuseppe, owns a couple pizza shops, and they're really good. They're really good pizza, not New York pizza.
Right.
But this one pizza in the park is definitely not New York pizza. It's these little pizzas, but they're actually really good. The closest we've had to New York pizza here would be our friend's pizza shop in Dublin, in Ireland. It's called D. Fontaine's, and we had a steak in it a long time ago, and it's the closest to New York pizza. I mean, for a while he was trying to import the water. He was trying to do a lot of that stuff. It's funny how places do that. You know, back where my family lived in North Carolina, there's a pizza place that, like, they love talking up that they do the same filtration system of their water. Yeah. But it don't taste like New York pizza. It's very good pizza, but no. And I mean, when we're in New York, we do make sure we hit up the Rays and hit up all our. You gotta. Well, Frank, of all people, Frank found this little tiny joint up in Times Square, opposite a theater there, and he was walking up the street one day years ago and saw Hugh Jackman walk out of the stage door, across the street to this little pizza place, and he picked up like 10 pizza pies to take to obviously the cast and crew of this play he was doing. So Frank went in to have a slice there, and he swore it's the best New York pizza. And we're like, this guy's from Leicester. What does he know what he's talking about? Right. But I mean, considering, you know, it's hard to find really good slices in New York now. You know, there's all these different kinds, all these different flavors and stuff. But a classic New York slice, it's amazing. I don't know the name of the place, but we know exactly where it is, so we always go there. But you said you're from upstate New York. Where in upstate New York? Because I went to Syracuse University.
That'd be the closest big city, Syracuse. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I was just at the Carrier Dome to see Metallica a couple weeks ago.
Oh, shit. Was that with Limp Bizkit? Were they opening then? Or
nope, this was Suicidal Tendencies and Pantera.
Oh, sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's good to see Metallica's out there doing the thing
And I
still.
will say that they shattered the previous record set by the Who in 1982. They beat 47,000 people. Yeah, it was
That's
packed,
amazing.
packed. Yeah.
Well, when I was at Syracuse, I was actually for a very short period of time. I think only one game. I was in the marching band
Oh, okay.
in the Carrier Dome. So, but yeah, that didn't last long.
And
Actually, my whole time at Syracuse didn't last more than 3 semesters. So.
and let's and while we're on the subject of New York, before we move on, man, let's also make sure that we keep a good thought for our New York Knicks tonight, who are going in, who have the Boston Celtics coming into the Garden tonight, man. We are deep in the playoffs, man, and we are fucking kicking ass.
It's looking good, and I hope they can go the distance. You know, I
know.
remember years when I was young, and they were hard to beat, but seems like they've had some ups and downs lately. But we'll see. I mean, over here it's hard to get even the basketball games and stuff. Living in England where I live now, it's there's football, soccer on all the time, but it's hard to get your basketball games and your NFL games and stuff. So I kind of take a back seat to that.
Are you able to find like new music nowadays? Because like obviously, I don't need to tell you this, but in the last several years now, the way people consume music, the physical product, unless you're a collector or you're into that kind of stuff, people are listening to their phones, they're streaming or whatever. There's such an influx of stuff on the streaming sites, so much music to go through, and we only got so many hours in the day. Are you? What's your listening trend like? Do you kind of fall back on your old favorites, or are you able to find new stuff today that gets you excited?
I do. I mean, I can definitely find new stuff. I mean, Spotify's great for that with their suggestions, but I tend to be a retro guy. So I'm a collector of 7-inch vinyl.
Okay.
I always have been since the 80s. So I'm always just looking for records on vinyl. I got a good little record shop around the corner from me, so I spend a lot of time in there just going through stuff. But yeah, new music there's lots of great new music, and Frank plays tons of it for us when we're on tour and on the long drives. He's playing stuff, but it all just reminds me of older stuff that I listen to.
But somebody did better once. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it just seems like, I'm not saying it's not, original, and it sounds good. It's produced well, and the songs are good, but it's just, yeah, it's not my thing. I'm still discovering loads of old music that I never knew about. So
yeah, I always like my conversations with Frank because we bond and geek over our love for Prince. He's a huge Prince fan. I'm a huge Prince fan. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, I love Prince, but I mean, I can't even compete with Frank's level of mastery of being the all things Prince. He just, and when we did that Prince record years ago, it was the reggae band. That was pretty awesome. And it's funny because that album's going on over 10 years old now, and it's just now getting a lot more recognition, which it never really got back in the day. So for that record, that's a real surprise for us that like the videos on YouTube with Ali Campbell singing Purple Rain, it's like,
I know.
It's just getting millions and millions of views, it's impressive. We're always getting new people that, I'm just discovering this for the new time. So for the first time, which is great. I mean, we never thought that. We kind of do all our music without the intention of anyone ever hearing it. So we're sort of
set the expectations low.
Very low. It's not. We just like, we like music is our passion. It's what we love doing, and we love writing music that we like. We never, and something that again, Frank and Naim, I think, is that we never wanted to get a band that just sounds, every song is like the same. We like mixing up all the styles and stuff. And sometimes those styles go a bit too far, where then we'll go, okay, let's start a reggae band. Or, in my case, it's like, I come from sort of an electronic background. In the 80s, I was into dance music and stuff and new wave and stuff. So that's what got me into synths, which got me into samplers, which got me into, all hip hop and all this other music. So it's like we all have many different projects we like doing. And I think that's kind of rare. I mean, I don't know many other bands that have different bands with the exact same members, but it's a completely different band.
That's cool. Yeah.
I think it's cool. I mean, it's our excuse for being able to put out reggae music or put out, FLC music or put out dance music, which is good. I mean, we love writing music. And lately, the start of this year was a bit of a tough one for me, but I decided, I went through my hard drives and just found all this music that just was sitting on hard drives, gathering this like digital dust. So I released a dance record. We've got a new Radio Riddler record that's actually coming out in like a month, but that's so on the download that no one even knows it's coming out, and
Right.
no one will probably know when it's released.
Right.
You know, we're putting all our energy into the new FLC record. Just because we think that's something that the fans are going to really like, because they're the ones been supporting us. We wouldn't be able to do any of these other projects without the love from the fans, you know, of FLC. So big up to them.
Yeah, that's the that's kind of the conundrum, because, and I think I was talking about this either with Frank or Naim, but you guys are, and other artists have gone down this path too. You guys are very viable over in the European markets, man. But will we see you guys play live or do an extensive tour here in the States at all? I know obviously there's a lot of precipitating factors and whatnot, and I know it's not cheap to tour and stuff, but I mean, you are an original, a New Yorker. You know what I mean? Like, will we see you guys put together any string of dates here in the States?
We did come to the States in 2023, and no one knew we were there. And we did probably, I think, 11 shows across the East Coast and stuff. And, it was strange because it seems like, it's a hard game at the moment with all those things you said, but also for promoters. Yeah. Because unless there's it's kind of a catch-22. Unless there's tickets selling from word of mouth, they're not going to really put much promotion into a band like us. Right. So with these gigs, we got a tour, we set it up. We cut corners to make it work, because like you said, it's expensive as hell touring in the States. It's like Australia, you don't really go there to make money, but you got to play your music for the people. Right. But I think that one of the problems with that tour was just simply the promoters realized, they're not getting the ticket sales they wanted, so they weren't really going to push it. We pushed it as hard as we could. And in the end, some shows are better than others. We played in some places for like 50 people in a place that was a couple hundred. Then we played in Cleveland at the House of Blues in a small room, like 250 capacity, and it was packed. Yeah. So it's just bizarre, how things work out. But I mean, we'll get back there. It's like the Americas are tough. And I mean, North America is much easier than South America. We've been trying for 20 years to get down and play in South America, because we know there's fans every time we put up shows. And most of the time it's somewhere in Europe. Then you get the people in America going, you never come back to the stage. Right. You guys are like Brits now. But we also get people in South America going, Argentina, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, because it's like they want us down there. And I mean, we got a good agent. We realize that in this day and age for bands at our level, the most important person really is the agent, because if you can't get the gigs, then you can't play for the people. It's hard enough getting on radio and all that. So, but
radio, man. I mean, radio, you probably got a bunch of kids now who are going to watch this that are going to go Google what the hell radio is.
Yeah. Well, geez, that's the thing. I have all these right here. I've got all these.
Can't even get a CD player. I mean, can't even get a CD player in your car anymore.
No. Well, we got all the cassettes. And it's interesting. We met a kid in Poland, in Gdansk, who came out, and he collects is rap tapes, and he has like thousands of rap cassette tapes, and now all he wants to do is like interview all the people that are in those bands, these rap tapes. I was really impressed because he's young. He's like probably in his 20s, but yet he's been collecting rap cassettes, since he was born, basically. So
I mean, I'm 52 years old, and I feel like it's been a long time since cassette tapes were relevant.
Yeah, I mean,
and I grew up in an era where they were very relevant, and they were pretty much, I mean, when I got into music, that was the format I listened on the most.
Yeah, well, me too. I was making those mixtapes and going in my my Chevy Nova and driving it around with the 3 in the tree stick shift. But those days, I mean, we're very lucky, you and I, and people of our generation, to be able to have lived those times, because I don't know how the future can be fun for a lot of the young ones. I see my daughter and the shit she has to go through. And I mean, she's a kid, she's happy, but it's like, we had it the best time, didn't we?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the 80s, I mean, come on, there's no time like it at all.
No, and
Yeah.
even the 70s, being a kid in the 70s was
Yeah.
great. Your parents didn't care what you were doing. Oh, I'm going
I
to go out
know.
and play flashlight tag, and you wouldn't
Yeah.
come back till 11, 12 at night, and they're just like sitting there watching TV, drinking
Yeah.
beer.
Nobody
Not
cared.
caring about- Nobody cared. Maybe they
It
were
sounds awful.
videos
I
out
mean,
there.
it probably sounds like a huge discredit to our parents, but I mean,
No, it's all good. I mean, but yeah, those were the days, as they say.
and so I'm curious, man. Like, how early did you get into music, man? Who was the? Did you grow up in a musical household? And what was the first influence? What was the first music that really resonated with you that you remember?
I mean, my family, not really musical people. My father's dad was a bugle player,
Okay.
if you can believe it. So not a trumpet player, but he would, whenever we go visit him, he'd come out on the front lawn when we pull up. He lived in Wisconsin, and he'd start playing bugle for us, and everyone in the neighborhood would think this guy's crazy. So that was probably my first exposure to an actual musical instrument. And he gave it to me one day, which was awesome to have that thing. But then I said, I can't do much with this. I can only play like, taps and reveille and a few other military things, but I need to get a trumpet. So I got a trumpet when I was young, took lessons. Then I was in a handbell choir with church. My folks are religious people, so we would go to church, and I was into all the music. I loved the organ player. I loved how the organ player had his little foot pedals of the pipe organ. So
Yeah.
I was there playing handbells for 8 years, and we like toured. We went around the world. We went to Japan. We came to England when I was like, 12, 13 years old. I was young. So, and then it was really, I guess it was probably hearing Vangelis, hearing like Chariots of Fire, something as silly as that.
Yeah.
Was big because I didn't know, what is this music? That isn't there's no trumpets, but it sounds like sort of like a trumpet, but it was, some synthesizer. And then I was obviously, growing up in the 70s, I was into Star Wars and all that shit. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
so when it was like, I liked Harrison Ford. So I saw any movie with Harrison Ford, and I convinced my folks to let me go with their neighbors to go see Blade Runner. Which pretty much put me to sleep. But the music in that I loved, and
Yeah.
didn't find out till a few years later that was the same guy who did Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
And that sort of sent me down the road of getting into synthesizers. And there was another guy named Stos who I did my dance music with at Syracuse, actually. And he got me into a lot of new wave stuff that, in hindsight was like great music compared to a lot of the music coming out today,
But you must have been hearing some great shit, though. I mean, being on the streets of New York City, though, man. I mean, it's just, it's such a melting pot of probably so many different sounds. I mean, you must have been hearing it from every different direction, all those different neighborhoods, playing so many different genres.
But that was more the 90s, because in the 80s, I was living outside of New York. I grew up outside of New York City, so I wasn't born in New York, but I was coming into New York City every weekend from probably 1987, and I was going to concerts, and I was going around the village and stuff. And when it wasn't until I moved there in like 1990 that I really just fell in love with the city. And I lived in Manhattan for a bit, and I got a job at these nightclubs, Peter Gation's clubs, and I only lived in Manhattan for about 10 months because I didn't like living there. There's like, you get too many visitors because you have too many friends coming to not hit your doorbell, hit your buzzer stuff. So I moved to Brooklyn then, and it was great because no one ever wanted to come to Brooklyn from Manhattan.
Right.
It's like, if you live in Brooklyn, you hang in Brooklyn, and if you live in Manhattan, you don't really go to Brooklyn or Queens and stuff. So, but yeah, it was amazing to grow up in the 90s, because I consider that was when I really grew up and started hearing all this other great music, which was pretty much hip hop, because I was living, right around the corner from Fulton Street where Beat Street Records was. And I'd go there to get my records and buy vinyl, and you'd walk in and there'd be Biggie Smalls doing like a freestyle with this like Asian chick DJ who just worked there playing music, and all these rappers would be hanging out in there, but you didn't really know who they were until you would watch like The Box. You remember there was a video called The Box, and you'd see their videos on, and Black Moon, and all these other hip hop groups from the 90s that were getting, obviously your Tribe Called Quest and your De La Souls and your Native Tongues, but it was like DJ Premier with Gangstar, it was like anything he was producing with J. Rue the Damager or Gangstar was just next level. So, you know, living in Brooklyn during those years, the early, you know, 90s was just such a great time because hip hop was not only in the stores and on the radio, but it was like on the streets.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Without
was
a doubt.
that was a special time. So I feel very lucky that I, you know, was able to experience that.
And now, how many songs will be on this new album? Because you know, when I was doing the music podcast a lot, I was getting a lot of artists on here, man, and it was a polarizing topic of if it still makes sense to do a full length, the way people digest music nowadays, where it seems like they'll find a track or two that they like. It almost seems like in a lot of ways it's becoming an EP world, or a shorter finished product. People just don't throw on a record and sit back with headphones like we did back in the day and absorb 12 or 13 songs, 15 songs, and just go for the ride and experience an album anymore. First of all, how many songs will be on this new album? Are you at liberty to say?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the album now because
Okay.
I mean, hopefully, if you're going to get this podcast up this week or early next week,
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, the pre-order for the new album goes up next week, and the first single track called "Little Bit Further," which is like a classic summer sort of disco vibe, disco rock song that we're looking forward to releasing. There's 10 songs on the album. Frank and I were kind of doing that same thing 2 years ago when when the changes happened to the band, when Huey quit the band, it was really important for Frank and I that we get in the studio and we get music out. We wanted people to, realize, we got it. I think over the years, especially over the history of the band over in Europe, it was like, because Huey was the one in the interviews, doing the TV shows, I think everyone assumed he's the one doing everything. Where early on, Huey and I had an agreement, which is pretty much, I don't want to do press. I'm not the biggest fan of talking about myself, but you do the press stuff. You love talking about yourself, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. He's great at that. But for me, I wanted to learn the biz. So I was like, I'll handle like tour management stuff with our tour manager. I'll handle management. I'll learn, how the publishing works and all these things. So, and I think that was a blessing, but also a curse. So it was sort of like, it made it where it seemed like the fans over the years, I mean, if they came to the shows, they knew who was doing what. But I think it was hard for people to really understand, what goes on in the studio with this band. And I think doing those 2 EPs was something Frank and I said, all right, this will, kind of prove to ourselves, but also let the fans know that it's like, this wasn't the Huey show, and it was, so, I mean, which is important because, and that's why an EP was easier. So for us, it was like, we didn't want to write a record because it would have taken a long time. We wanted to do EPs. And like you were saying, it's like everyone's releasing EPs or just releasing singles.
Or singles, yeah.
So we wanted to do 4 songs because we can get an idea across. So the first one was the Roosevelt Sessions, which was, had that jazzy vibe to it, which we loved. And then we opened it up a bit more with the Capistrano Sessions and kind of getting, songs that they weren't necessarily written right then and there, but they were heavily influenced by our tour in America because we were just having a great time touring around California and stuff. So we were getting inspired to write lyrics and stuff for those songs. But then it just became obvious afterwards. We're like, all right, we did the EPs, but an album, you can just really express a lot more. And I mean, we thought it would take us a lot longer than it did. I mean, we really started it last June and we pretty much finished it by like September. So, it's 10 songs. Like I said, it's raw. The sound is raw. We're trying to push the envelope as much as we can as a band. We stick to a formula. Right. And that's a formula that, we've always had in the band. And it's basically simply because I'm sitting behind a laptop or a sampler and I'm chopping up sounds and stuff. And then as we go in the studio and as we try to clear samples, which nowadays is next to impossible, we build upon it and play instruments on top of stuff. And this album just really came, at least half of it was like shockingly good for us. We were really happy and it proved to us that wow, we can really do something different that we think the fans will like. They might end up fucking hating it, I don't know, but I hope they don't because we got a big tour starting in September where we're going to play a lot of those songs. But yeah, it's good. A Matter of Time.
Is it nerve wracking? Well, first of all, you said it's going to be more like a rock album because I always think of you guys as having such an eclectic mixture of different genres. You know what I mean? Like when I think of you guys, I think of, like you said, jazz. I always certainly hear hip hop and lots of soul and lots of R&B. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things that draws me to Prince. I feel like I hear so many different elements. Yeah, and I feel like I feel like to a degree, like you guys put a lot of different ingredients into the stew as well. If someone comes up and asks you what genre are the Fun Loving Criminals, what do you tell them?
I think it changes. For like in the '90s, we were alternative.
Yeah,
alternative
but everybody was alternative in the '90s.
Yeah, so they had to call the label, put us in the alternative rock area. And some days we'd be like, no, we need to be in the hip hop. But then we're like, no, we don't fit in the hip hop. We're like too immature to be in the soul or the R&B, sections. Yeah. I don't know. It's just it's Fun Loving Criminals. And I mean, that's the thing is when I say rock record, I think there's just there's a rawness to rock and roll. Even new music you hear, it's something special about rock and roll music. And I think that we sort of have that on this album, whether or not there's really loud guitars or stuff on it. I think there's kind of like a cohesiveness to the kind of raw sound on this record. And that's what we like. Like when we listen back to it, it sort of seems like, okay, when we play this album live and we play songs from it, it's like right from the get-go, what you're getting. So it's going to be, when a guitar with, some of these riffs Naim came up with, and, Frank came up with a lot of riffs and stuff. It's heavy. Even some of the mellower songs on, this album probably has the least amount of mellow songs. I'd say there's probably maybe 3, but there's a Latin song, there's a disco track, there's a hip hop track, and then there's like the mix, there's a lot of to me, one of the best songs we ever did was Passive Aggressive, because I love how you have the mellow bit in the verses and then it gets crazy in the chorus. So there's a few songs like that on the album, and there's a tribute song more or less to the Beastie Boys, because obviously we wouldn't be around without bands like the Beastie Boys, who fused that. They mixed up that whole hip hop and rock game from the early days. So and those songs are fun. That's the thing, is this album, even though a lot of the material, there's a lot of heavy lyrical content on it, simply because we're a lot older. We see what's happening in the world. We have kids, so it's like we're trying to protect our kids' future.
Right.
And so a lot of the themes on the record tend to be about, not fear at all, but like strength, where you really got to focus on protecting those that you love and the things you care about, whether it's your kid or whether it's your dog. I got a dog sleeping there, or whether it's, your music. So I think it's some, but the point is, there's always got to be some moments where you let your hair down and you go nuts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and there's a few of those on the album too. So that's why I think it's something. People will hear the disco song, which I don't want to call it disco because it's our version of disco.
Right.
So it's kind of like a disco rock track. So, but that will be released next Friday, and then there's another single coming out. The Beastie Boys one is coming out in July, which is just, when I say Beastie Boys, it's like Frank and I, we have a track from years ago called We the Three, where we each kind of got a little rap on it.
Right.
Huey was doing the majority of the vocals, but Frank got a nice verse. I didn't want to do a verse, so I had like 4 lines. It was really quick in this song, We the Three. But on this song, which is called Full Stop, which comes out in July, we wanted to do like a back and forth, like the Beasties do. They're like the best at that. Someone says a line, someone finishes a line. They keep
going. Like a call and response type thing.
So we did that, and it was funny because Naim was the one where we were like, all right, now it's your turn. And he's like, I don't want to say nothing. And he's like, bless Naim. He's got the sweetest voice ever when he sings and stuff. But he also, when he talks, he's got the most English kid voice.
Very.
So it's hard to get it
to
go all tough guy. So we had to record him saying his 2 lines. Oh, I think he says, I'm here, let's go. That's it. It's got 4 words. Yeah. I'm here, let's go. But we must have recorded it 50 times just to get him to the point where he was so mad at us. We kept
got to dirty him up a little bit.
Yeah, he did it. I'm here, let's go. And that's it. He got it. So
And now, what's the segue like, Ben, for you? Because now, sort of by de facto, man, you are now the front man. I mean, you've kind of slid over into that role now, and kind of taken that, because I think everybody who's a fan of Fun Loving Criminals has always equated you with certainly being like a big part of the creative driving force. You know what I mean? You're so you got the ability to you're playing the trumpet, you're playing the keyboards. You know what I mean? You're playing the harmonica. You know what I mean? You're juggling. You're like a one-man band back there. You know what I mean? But now you're adding. But now, you just need some cymbals on your knees and you'd be ready to go. You know what I mean? But but like, so now you've added the vocals, which you've been doing for the last couple of years now, man. Has that been a difficult transition for you? Because as you said, you weren't the guy who wanted to be the front man. You know what I mean? You did happily defer to Huey.
This band never really wanted a front man. Even in the early days with Huey, he had the best sounding voice.
Yeah.
So it made the most sense. When I met him, he was a guitar player in a band. He wasn't a singer in another band he was in. So, and it, worked out great for him, And unfortunately, like a lot of people, Dr. Keith Richards often talks about LVS, which I don't know if you know. It's a legit disorder called lead vocalist syndrome.
Okay.
And it happened. Keith Richards talked about it often, and it happens to a lot of singers. And unfortunately, that's sort of happened to Huey. And I hope it never happens to me. But we learned from him where it can go wrong, and bless him. We wish him nothing but the best with whatever he's doing. But at the same time, we don't want a front man, because it's just, it's not about us. It's about the music. And that's important for us. It's like, we want people to come to our shows and listen to the music, vibe with the songs, vibe with the lyrics. But it's like, on stage, Frank's introducing some songs, I'm introducing some songs.
Yeah.
The adjustment to doing vocals, it's like I don't get the groove as much anymore. Oftentimes I was there.
Right.
Being like, Ray Charles. But now it's like I got to pretty much still stare at like an iPad just to have that comfort of knowing what some of the lyrics are. Because there's a lot of lyrics.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lyrics.
And I think in my own, naivety, I think when I had Naim on, I kind of thought, okay, he's the guy that they've now plugged in Huey's spot. And I think when I said, like I made reference to like him being the front man, and he was kind of like, whoa, no, I'm not the front man.
No, Naim doesn't want. He's not. We can't have him talking in between songs. No, bless him. Naim's.
Yeah.
He had tough shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. And none of us were trying to be like Huey. I think again it was like with Huey back in the day, my voice was the closest, was the best sound. It was the most New York out of everyone's voices, And I mean, the work Naim's done on guitars, I'll give Huey credit where credit's due. As a soloist, he's one of the best I've ever heard as a guitar soloist. I mean, depending on which Huey you get at a show, but he's one of the best guitarists I've ever heard when it comes to solo. And Naim is like very well rounded. So you get Naim in a studio, he'll play any styles you want. He'll even surprise you with stuff. And live, it's great because he really, one of the things I first noticed in those early rehearsals with Naim was like, we'd be playing a song and it was like, I go, wait, stop. I was like, what is that part you're playing? And he's like, oh, that's like the part in the chorus. And I was like, I don't know that part. And he's like, well, it's on the album. And we never realized that there's a lot of stuff that was recorded that Huey never did live. And we spent so much more time playing live than we did listening to our own music, that to hear those bits again, just little rhythmic lines and stuff, it was really great because it was something, and again, I understand, there's a lot of lyrics in our songs, whether it's new ones or the classic or the old ones, but it's like, it was always hard for Huey to do, to rap and play like a rhythm part or something.
Right.
So I think for Naim, it's great because he can focus on always having those parts exactly where they need to be, when they need to be there. And, unfortunately, I've had to like kind of strip back some sounds that I would usually play just to be able to do the vocals. But, I mean, for me, I know Frank would probably totally disagree, but for me, vocals are more like another instrument.
Yeah.
I was always a music guy. over a lyric guy. That's why I never was into really Bob Dylan or any of those singer-songwriter people, apart from maybe Leonard Cohen. So but I know it's like lyrics are obviously important and the storytelling's important.
Yeah.
But for us, and I think live, and I think what's a blessing for us is the fans that come check us out, seem different from the fans that go check out Huey. I think those people go to those shows because they love the music. That's the one thing. All the people that come to his shows, our shows, or both shows, whatever, they like the songs, but they're going to his shows for him, for the personality, for the one guy.
Right.
And with us, I think it's more about the music. So I think the fans that are coming to our shows, they tend to be the more muso ones, the ones who are there to check out the sounds, get into the vibe, as opposed to having a night out and getting pissed and getting drunk out of their mind and then starting fights with the band members and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we don't need that at our shows anymore. We're out to do something a bit more sophisticated, but still have a great time and just basically play new music. That's the thing, is we always go out and we'll play the classics, and we also been deep diving into some of the lesser known tracks from the albums and even B-sides, because that's something when I go see bands play growing up, they play a song. What was that song? Oh, it's the B-side to this single, and I never knew the track. So it was like you find more songs of your favorite artists, and I wanted to be like that. And it's like we could never really do that because we never really rehearsed before. So now being able to rehearse, it's like, I mean, it was easy for Frank and I. We already knew like 30 or 40 of his songs, but Naim was like, yo, here's a list. And it was like 50 songs. And he was like,
yeah, I bet.
And he's like,
yeah.
Am I getting paid for rehearsals? No. Because then we'll never.
And then what about touring right now? Because you've been doing this for so long, I used to pose that question to a lot of guests on here, man. Has the itinerary changed? Has the amount of time that you like to go out, how like what's a comfortable number? Because I know as you get older, you kind of miss your creature comforts. Maybe you don't want to be home, on the road as much, like what's a comfortable number to go out and be out and then come back?
I think it all depends on what we're doing. I mean, if we're put like with this A Matter of Time record, that record's coming out, we want to go play everywhere we can play with it, especially if we can get to the States, get to South America, get back to Australia, because for the better part of like, since, the last time we properly toured all over Europe, I mean, we've done it a lot the past couple years, and that's like been amazing to be able to go back and do shows for fans that hadn't seen us play in 15 years.
Right.
And that's, like you were saying before about how touring's expensive, it's hard to get gigs and stuff. It's like, we just never really did it. And it wasn't all of us who had this philosophy, but we were kind of, all trying to work together to say, but some people more than others weren't going to leave they were with the Linda Evangelista, I'm not getting out of my bed for less than 10 grand thing.
Right.
And for us, unfortunately, that killed us, because you can't be a band that's still trying to have an active career playing music if you don't go play for the people. Just doing tours in the UK is not enough, and we love doing shows in the UK. Some of our families and friends are all people from the UK, so we love playing there. But like, we miss doing shows in Poland, we miss doing shows in Eastern Europe, we miss doing shows in Australia, in America, definitely. And I mean, I was telling you before, there was like 50 people at a show, but those 50 people were all like hardcore fans. So, so they loved it. And they would put a post up saying, oh, there was no one there. It was amazing. It was like a show just for me. And that was cool. It didn't hurt our egos, you know what I mean? But that was something nowadays, it's like, if we're like with A Matter of Time, we're going to play everywhere we can possibly play. Then we take a break. But this is what we love to do. We love doing small shows and clubs. We love doing festivals. We love playing our music, and we still are young in our hearts. So we're not going to stop anytime soon. But, I think we're a bit older, maybe wiser. I don't know. It depends how much tequila or rum's been drunk.
Older for sure. Yeah.
But, there are still those nights, but I think it's, we know our limits now. And when you're doing 4 or 5 shows in a row, you can't be out kicking it. And nowadays, one of the ways we learned to basically minimize the costs of touring is to do a lot of things ourselves. So we don't bring a tour manager out, because honestly, all they do is get in the way. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they make decisions that we get pissed off at because it's the wrong decisions. And we're like, we paid that guy.
Yeah, we paid him to piss us off.
To piss us off. So it's better. It's better, like, if we know, because we've done it for so long, we know what hotels we want to stay in.
Right.
We know what cars we want to drive in. We've tried having other people drive us. No one's as good a driver as Frank. He's simply one of the greatest drivers. You know, he took all these stunt driving courses when he was young. He's just an unbelievable driver. So Frank is driving. I'm his navigator, operating the sounds. And
You're the
stuff.
co-pilot. Yeah. Yeah.
And the tech / drivers sitting in the back seat because he's like one of these people on the road. So it's like, if we do it ourselves, it saves money. It allows us to be able to tour in all these places, and it ends up being less regrets, and we end up being a lot less pissed off.
Yeah.
Because it's just, we know anything goes wrong, well, there's no one to blame but ourselves.
Well, there's so many elements that could come into play to make it uncomfortable anyway that you might as well try to kind of minimize that and be as comfortable as possible, right? I mean, as I said, you're already away from your creature comforts. You're already away from home. I mean, you kind of want to kind of maybe mitigate the damage and say, hey, let's make this as easy as possible for everybody involved, you know?
And we do just that. And we put a lot of faith into our crew, who are amazing. Frank would probably say amazing, but they are amazing because they do long ass 15-hour drives, you know, which in America, 15-hour drive isn't that big a deal. In Europe, it's like the end of the world.
Right.
Like driving 4 or 5 hours in England and people bug out, oh, that was a long drive. Where it's like, I used to drive from New York to Florida with my family every year for a holiday, and it was like a 20-hour drive. No big deal. We're in the car with the, you know, Hooked on Classics on the stereo, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, everyone does their job with us, and that's the thing, is it's kind of like, it's a small family, and it always tends to be with bands, but all boys are working hard out there, and girls. We actually got we got a girl on tour with us as well, which is great. It don't matter if you're good at your job, don't matter what you are. So
what was the impetus for a lot of the early stuff? Because I think, and obviously hardcore fans know, much of it was tongue in cheek, man, you know, but there were a lot of references to organized crime, a perception that maybe you guys really were criminals, you know what I mean? Or there was a criminal element to it, which I obviously, again, if you're a fan, you understand the entertainment aspect of it, and that it is tongue in cheek. Where did that come from? Is that a New York thing? Because there is, you know, such a, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but there is a criminal, certainly a known criminal element in New York.
It definitely is, because, like, you know, the 90s in New York City was crazy, because you did have the mob blowing up cars outside of courthouses, you know.
Gotti on trial, yeah.
You know, so it was like that was, we were working at these nightclubs where you'd have the gangsters kids coming in there and stuff, and the door guys at the club weren't, you know, mafia family. I don't speak about them, but highly respect them. The Joneses, they were called, not their real name, but they would always tell us, hey, let these guys in. Right. Just give them a bunch of drink tickets and let them do their thing. So, I mean, I think a lot of the stories that Huey was writing on those early albums, especially the first one, was they were stories from when we were working at these clubs and stuff, you know. And I know he had some personal stories that were his stories from, you know, when he was in the Marines and all that stuff, which is fine and it's cool. But a lot of those stories, Scooby Snacks about the Valiums, the security guard, that was the clubs we were working at. Right. So I was right there during all those stories and stuff. But yeah, I think it was, you know, when you're young and stupid, you tend to be a bit more silly. And I think that's one thing that I would hope that fans, you know, the fans were in their 20s when they were first hearing it, or the friends, we call them, were in their 20s too. Now they're a bit older. So I hope they can understand that we're not going to come out and, you know, be talking about all sorts of really silly, over the top stuff. I mean, we do like to still have a lot of fun, and, you know, some of our songs are a lot of fun, but I think it's like a lot of bands do that, you know. It's like U2 is the king of that. Like, the first 3 albums were almost borderline punk, and they were chatting all stuff, and then everything is mid-tempo. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's cool. And we're not mid-tempo in that sense, but I think the storytelling hasn't necessarily taken a backseat. It's just evolved because we're old.
What makes a great song, man? Like, what's the ingredients, man? What comes first in a great fun-loving criminal song? Is it a riff? Is it a line? Is it a title, man? Like, what What gets the whole ball rolling?
I mean, most of it's the skeleton of the songs will be the beats.
Yeah.
That and I'll get inspiration. I'll hear something, whatever it is, a reggae song, whatever type of music it is, but I'll hear a bass line or something and it'll make me go, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it comes down to if it's something that's rare or unknown, because I come from the old school sampling ideology of don't sample in excess, don't sample U2, don't sample really popular things.
Right.
Try and dig deep and find those samples that no one knows about and, build upon it. So like the skeleton of a song will really be me messing around with bass lines, drum loops, maybe guitar riffs. I mean, really, it's whatever sound I hear. It can be a piece of dialogue from a movie. There's that movie called The Star Chamber with Michael Douglas. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
classic film, great film. But the soundtrack is next level. So I was watching The Star Chamber and I heard the music and I thought, oh, that's amazing. So I instantly went up, found the movie online, ripped it, sampled all the music bits I could get, and then built up a song around it. A song that'll never come out because we'll get sued for days. You try to sample movie stuff.
Right.
But I'll just get inspired for that. And then I'll kind of build it up, whether it's just the bass and drum, or maybe add some keys or strings. I love my ARP string ensembles like Pink Floyd and Steely Dan and bands like that. Great string ensemble sounds. And then I'll send it to Frank and he'll put some like live drums on it, which is great because then the sample beats can kind of take a back seat to that, because there's nothing better than live drumming. If you listen to any Prince record, it's like he's the master of having the Lynn drum stuff, but then having live drums playing.
Right.
Which is just something that we've always been big fans of. We never wanted to be a band that had drum machines and then live it's a drummer and it's like, wait a second, it's totally different. So we always mixed it from the beginning. And our engineer Tim Latham was really into that idea because he came from a rap, like a hip-hop background, working with Tribe Called Quest and stuff. And he, they never had really musicians in the studio. They had some bass players and stuff, but for us it was important to layer all those sounds. I mean, that's the thing, is I think Frank sometimes is like the production police, in the sense where I'll keep building things up and building it and building up, and he'll be like, hold on a second, just wait, how many fucking string sounds do we need in one song? You don't need an electric piano, an acoustic piano, a harpsichord, a clavinet. You don't need all those things. So, and then that's where the engineer and the Tim Latham again is amazing at taking the sounds, spreading them out, and making them sound right. Otherwise, I'll just go to town, put everything up the middle, and have a good. Now I'm selling myself short a bit, but yeah, I mean, it's the songs can start with that, or it can be the three of us in the studio in a rehearsal, just kind of getting our sounds up in a rehearsal and go, hold on a second, whatever just happened there is amazing.
We got
and oftentimes we'll record stuff, and then that'll end up being the sample. It starts as the little kind of skeleton that we build up upon. So, and I mean, with this album, I think a lot of it was like, if I kind of go song to song, there was like the first song in the album, for some reason, I was really listening in my head, not really listening to, but in my head was hearing David Bowie's Sound and Vision. So you obviously have that very loud string in that, and it's kind of funky, and the finished product does not sound anything like that. But when I was building the song up, it was kind of like being built up like a Sound and Vision. And then it kind of took a side angle, took a little like turn, and then it went kind of down, then it went up again. And the finished result is an FLC song. And that's the thing, is it always kind of makes its way to being a Fun Loving Criminal song in the end.
Right.
And I think, there's other songs. There's a song called What It Is, because, it is what it is. I mean, I know so many people say it now. It's like, doesn't a day go by that someone will be like, oh, it is what it is. Because the world's a crazy place at the moment.
It's now in the vernacular of the public. It is.
It is. I mean, it's just so, and there's a guy I work with at the nightclubs called Gallo. Very cool. Not Vincent Gallo. Not Joe Gallo. Joe Gallo, the gangster. Yeah. But his first name was Gallo. But he used to, whenever I'd see him, he'd come into work. We worked in the offices. I'd say, hey, man, how you doing? He's like, what it is. That was like his thing, was like, how you doing? It was what it is. So it is what it is, what it is. But that that's just like a straight up rock song. It's like if there's a song that it was the closest to us kind of doing a Rage Against the Machine meets Fun Loving Criminals, I guess it's that, you know. So, and it's a riff based song, so that's one that ended up being a rock song. But it also has like, it has sort of a Scooby Snacks energy to it, and a kind of funny story about a day in the life of us on tour. So I mean, that's something I like about that. But yeah, I mean, we don't really make the rules. We just kind of go with it. There's another song that's like a Latin song that came out of nowhere. I was listening to all this Latin music just in the background while I was doing something in my studio, and then I heard a little riff. So I grabbed little bits and pieces, did my little sampling, you know, chops, and we built upon that. And that's a perfect example. We're in the studio. Naim came up with this line that's just, I mean, it's just next level, like melodic, like it's almost, he's some kind of, you know, wizard.
Music savant. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to give him too much credit, you know what I
No,
mean?
but yeah, but do you feel like you're always like hearing music though? Like, is it almost like one of those things where like, you know, it's a gift, but it can also drive you crazy? Because sometimes like you're saying like, you know, I'm hearing things, and then suddenly my attention's there, and I'm tapping in, and I'm saying, I've got to go rip this. I've got to go take a piece of this, or this is inspiring me. Like, do you feel like sometimes, man, that like that it's almost like this overwhelming presence? Or I mean, you know, in your line of work, maybe that's a good thing.
It is, but I mean, I think I'm old enough. I wish I had this, not knowledge, but I wish I knew the steps I had to take when I was in my 20s, because the technology was limited then. The resources were limited unless I had lots of money to go buy records. I mean, nowadays it's like all the different tools you can use to sample music to get the, you know, get a start with, because I don't think you can make a Fun Loving Criminal song. I mean, there's exceptions, you know, we've got some bluesy songs on records and stuff, you know, but I don't think a Fun Loving Criminal song can really, or at least the ones people know and love of the band, not necessarily deep tracks, or can be without having that kind of sample bass, you know, that started the song. I mean, you know, nowadays it's like the best resource is YouTube, because if you want a flute sound, and you know, we did a podcast a couple years ago when we were in New York, and for some reason the guy grabbed a clip, and he's a cool guy, and he grabbed the clip of me saying, oh, the best where we sample from is YouTube, because they'll never bust you on YouTube. Grab something from YouTube and then Shazam your song when you're almost done making it. And if Shazam doesn't recognize it, you got away with the samples and stuff. He grabbed that clip completely out of context of where I was explaining what you take from YouTube. You don't go to YouTube and type in Queen, Don't Stop Me Now, and just grab Freddie's voice. You know what I mean?
Right.
But say you want a flute sound. If you go in YouTube and write flute, there's like 52,000 million quadrillion videos of whether it's a kid in his school playing flute, or some, or you know, some fame, or Zamfir playing flute. So,
and how does that work? Because it sounds like it could be a slippery slope. Like you made mention earlier in the interview, like, oh, you know, sampling can be a nightmare. You know what I mean? So like, what do you mean when you say that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the steps you have to go through? Like, for instance, if you find a flute sound on there that you want, how do you got to go about ensuring you can use that without legal repercussion?
You got to chop it up and just hope that kid's mother doesn't listen to your song. Because if you
Johnny at the school concert,
I mean, the thing is, to be honest, you know, it is like it's still kind of the Wild West for us, you know. We sort of have that pirate mentality. And yes, there's the people, you know, my parents are like, oh, but if you don't pay that boy, then, you know, that's not fair, is it? And I'm like, life ain't fair. It's like, it's a sound going, and that's all it is. It's not like the kid wrote this amazing freaking.
And these notes obviously do exist, right? They're you know, anybody can access them, and anybody could play them in that order, right? I mean, everything probably at some point in time in the history of music has been played, right? Every note has been played, every sequence has probably been played. I mean, so I mean, it is a slippery slope. It's dicey.
It can be. I mean, and that's why, you know, when we sample stuff, it's not ever going to, it may have started as something that you go, ooh, that was well known.
Right.
By the time we're done recording it and replaying it and changing it up, I mean, yeah, I could go through every one of our albums and say, oh, well, that bass line at the very first time I wrote, when I started writing the song, was
Yeah.
actually from this band. And you might hear it then, but you would never hear it unless I told you that.
Right.
And then there's other ones back in the early days. You know, we had a song about Huey's dog called Sugar, and
Yeah.
I had a straight up sample of Hall and Oates, one on one.
Yeah.
But that was the whole point, was the sample that. Those days are long gone, because now, you know, they used to take a percentage of your publishing, of the songwriters, and that was pretty much it. They get paid like $2,000. Nowadays, they want, if you sample something that's known, or even something that was popular, or even a band that was popular, it doesn't have to be a well-known song of theirs. They want 100% of the publishing. They want at least 10 grand. And every time you sell this, they get another 10 grand and another 10 grand. And that's why the only ones sampling stuff nowadays are your major label artists. And I don't think a lot of those artists know exactly what they're signing away. Their song's going to be number one. They're going to go, my song's number one, and they're never going to make money. But some other guy is, and they're like, well, why is he making all the money? Well, because we sampled him. That's why you like that song. That's why you chose it. For us, my explanation was, you know, when it's like, oh, well, you grab that flute sound, which is not really a specific flute thing, but it's an example,
right,
from that boy at his school, and he never gets paid, so that's not really fair. And I'm like, well, we ain't getting paid. No one's getting paid. Who's getting paid from album sales? We actually, the only money we'll make is from selling vinyl, if we press the vinyl ourselves, which has a lot of cost. But I mean, you know, it's interesting how when that little clip came out on that other podcast, it went viral, and it made me look like two things I didn't like about it. It made me look like a complete dumbass, because it was like, all the comments were like, yeah, don't listen to this guy. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's clearly never done this before. And it's like, I've been doing this for 30 years, sampling people, but I don't care. And then the other comments were like, this guy looks like the poor man's Norm Macdonald, which I thought was one of the greatest comments. Which I don't see it. I don't see Norm Macdonald. Maybe
I don't either. No.
McDonald. Well, thank you for that. But I mean, it's like, I don't get it. But yeah, I mean, it's a much different world when it comes to sampling nowadays, where it's just the way I've always started writing music. I could pick up a bass guitar and just start playing around, but I won't really hear anything in my head. So I'll hear a song, or I'll whatever it is. I mean, it can be nature sounds in the park when I'm walking my dog, or my dog can bark or something, and I'll hear a rhythm and go, ooh, that's a good idea. And then it's in my head. I come back and I got my tools in my studio. So, but the easiest way to start is by dropping down little beats, putting some sounds on it, you know, keyboards, obviously, and then see where it goes. I mean, if you listen to the first 2 or 3 FLC records, the demos are pretty similar to the final result. You know, the first album was all sampled stuff. We couldn't clear any of it because, you know, it was just, people were wise to how much they can make when people are sampling their music. So the label was like, you got to replay that stuff. And that was kind of hard for us back in the early days, because we played instruments, but we never really thought, oh shit, we got to re-record like the whole album. And some bits we didn't, you know, Tarantino let us use his dialogue, you know, and, you know, we got some other bits but a lot of people like Phil Collins didn't want nothing to do with us sampling one of his bits, you know, One More Night. There's like a little DX7 sound. I could have just hired a DX7 and played the same note. It wouldn't have been a problem. But once Phil Collins caught on to it, it was like, oh shit. So we had to change things up, and that took a long time in the studio. We had the record done in 5 days, and then it took 3 weeks to like replay certain bits and lose bits of samples and stuff. But the demos, like if you listen to now, as opposed to like that first skeleton of what I came up with, they're completely different, because the first thing you do is take the samples off. So like I'll build up, you know, I'll start with like on that Sound and Vision track. I didn't sample Sound and Vision. It was another sample.
You're almost camouflaging. You're almost camouflaging them.
Yeah, well, they just naturally change. They morph, they mutate into something else. And it reminded me of Sound and Vision, the sample that I took, but I knew we're not going to clear that sample. So then I built it up, and then you tell Naim, all right, play the rhythm guitar similar. He changes it up enough. You know, we change the bass line a bit, and all of a sudden it's your thing. Now, some people say, oh, well, you're not really writing songs then, are you? But I think, when you listen to our music, there's a lot of writing going on. So I
Right.
don't feel like we're cheating. I just feel like we're maybe, jumping the gun a little bit, so to speak.
Well, let me segue into that. Because you bring up cheating, and I would just like to get your I would like to get your opinion on. There are a lot of legendary bands out there, and it seems like when people go see a band live now, especially in this age where everyone is pulling out their cell phones, and they're not always there to record a piece of their favorite song for posterity's sake or to go home and share with people. Everyone now is almost like an armchair music critic. They're going home, they're putting it up on YouTube, and they're saying, look, these guys don't sound like they did 30 years ago. Look how awful they are now. And then you get these bands who are out there now using, and I'm not a musician myself, but smoke and mirror type trips, backing tracks. I don't know all the, but you'll see like the Motley Crues of the world. I don't mean to make them the scapegoat or whatever. You'll see these bands being outed for, they're using tracks, or they're playing to this, or they're using, they're filtering in, they're piping in vocals. Where do you stand on that when you go see a legendary band that maybe can't replicate what they did 30 or 40 years ago? Are you going for the performance and the nostalgia of it all, man? Because obviously that's that's an unfair comparison to expect someone to go see a band like Kiss and expect them to sound like they did in 1977. You know what I mean?
Of course not. But I like Kiss is a perfect example, because one of our tour managers years ago, and probably the only good tour manager we ever had, Bulldog, was their tour manager for Kiss.
Okay.
For their last tour that went on for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But they,
So
we went to see him in London, and we went to see him actually when we were in the States, which is amazing to see a band like Kiss in London, but also in America. It's like two different, the music's the same,
right?
But the crowd and I love American crowds. I love English. I love America. There's something special about American crowds, especially at rock shows.
Right.
The music sounded awesome to me, and from as far as I could tell, I wasn't hearing vocals and stuff. I think on tape and stuff, I think in like the pop world, it makes sense if you've got Taylor Swift or Madonna or someone dancing around on stage doing all the dances.
Right.
It makes sense that they'll have the tracks running simultaneously with what they're singing. And a lot of times, some artists don't care, like Dua Lipa. She's a great artist. She's up there dancing. She's got lots of songs people love.
Yeah.
But she will have no problem with dropping the mic to do a dance move and her vocals still playing on there.
Oh, yeah.
It does none of that bother. Whatever you want to do to have fun at your show, I'm the last person to be a critic.
Back in the day, though, didn't we take a Grammy away from Milli Vanilli for doing this? Now Milli Vanilli would do just fine in today's day.
They would do great, and they should come back. I don't know. With they got. There's always going to be the Lee Harvey Oswald of music. So that's both of them. But we don't hide the fact that we have backing tracks. We don't have them hidden behind the bass amps or something. They're right there on my keyboard stand.
Right.
I use a CDJ. It's, to me, the most stable is like a CD. It's like a DJ's CD player,
Well, plus, I think when you're going to see a band like Kiss, though, I don't think those guys are ever on record as saying that they're virtuosos on their instruments. I think when you go see Kiss, you are going for the whole performance. You're going for the pyro. You're going for Gene Simmons' bloody tongue. You're going for the for the flames and the pyro and all that stuff. You know what I mean? I don't think you're going because you're saying I want to see the best guitar player, or Gene is the best bass player ever. You know what I mean? And I don't think those guys are trying to represent themselves that way anyway.
No, they know that they've got their part in musical history.
Yeah.
And they want to showcase that. And I was, growing up, my older brother had the vinyl with the gun in it, the love gun.
Right.
And stuff. And I would look at the photos and think it's is this a soundtrack to some George Romero movie or something?
Right.
But he loved it. And to be able to take him to go see Kiss, it was just amazing. It was like a full circle experience. But I didn't think once. I'm going to try not to judge anyone doing, when it comes to music, especially.
Everyone's trying to make their life. Everyone's trying to make a living. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And do what you love. We don't hide the fact we use the beats, because to us it's a big part of the hip hop sound, and it's important for us. We, if you took our beats away, it'd still be a rockin' show, but there'd be a lot of little bit. It's like having a pasta and just putting tomatoes in it and nothing else. You know what I mean?
But
It's
are
good.
there artists though who do stay too long to the party though, and who go out there and represent themselves and and take the audience's money, man? You know what I mean? Who maybe should like know when to say when? And I'm not trying to out anybody or mention anybody specifically. You know what I mean? But obviously, as I said, people go out there with phones and they are almost critiquing performances, and they're running home and putting it up and saying, "Hey, look how awful Kiss is now," as opposed to back in the '70s or the '80s or whatever. I mean,
there's a lot of it's very easy for people to be negative. It's harder to find good, amidst all the strife. But I think, if and especially online, social media, and we know certain people just love diving into the negativity and stuff, and we just don't have time for that. We want to make our music. We want to play it for the people that want to hear it, and just that's what we were born to do.
Are you somebody who looks at feedback? Like, will you go on and say, hey, I know that show we did the other night, someone put it up on YouTube. Let me see what people are saying. Or like, will you look at reviews of your music, or are you somebody that just makes the art and just doesn't look back?
No, we've always been, I mean, me personally, I've always sort of ran our social media pages.
Yeah.
I've always worked with managers, always set up stuff. And just because that was something I wanted to get into. I kind of wish I didn't, wish I did all the press and stuff. Who knows where it would take me, but I have no regrets. But I don't.
Well, now you're stuck doing the press fast because you're the front man.
Oh, fucking that word.
And here we are.
Right. The fast man. The front man. No, I don't like that. I don't accept your hypothesis. That's like Quentin Tarantino. I don't accept your hypothesis.
Well, unfortunately, you do kind of have to play ball and do these kind of things though, because a lot of it is a lot of the music business now, man, with social media, it really is a lot of being able to do your own self promotion nowadays.
Oh yeah, and for us, it's essential.
It is, yeah.
And that's why good people like yourselves, Mark, we're just very happy that people want to talk to us, and we feel very lucky and blessed. So I have no problem talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always sort of ran our social media pages, so, and especially in the past couple of years, we've had to fight off a lot of the hate.
Sure.
And of course, we're human beings, so it can affect us, but it's not like we're going to let that bother us. If anything, we feel kind of bad. For people that it's like, wow, that you just literally go to all the band's pages or go to review a restaurant and it's just gotta all be shit. It's
I know.
If you can't, my grandma always said, if you can't say something nice, shut the fuck up.
I always find it funny too, because you see these people go on Yelp and write like a 10-page dissertation on like the chicken that they had in a restaurant the other night. It's like, who's got this kind of time and this kind of energy? I mean,
I don't get it, but I mean, and it does kind of can change opinion on stuff, especially when it comes to a restaurant. I'll go see, someone will say, oh, let's go to this restaurant. I'll go read reviews, and it'll be like, oh, it's fantastic. Then you read that one shit review.
Yeah, that's the one that sticks with you. Yeah.
I think, music, we're lucky because you can listen to it. You don't have to eat it.
Right. Are you nervous? Are you nervous because this is your first full-length album in a while, but you've been doing this for so long? Are you nervous when a new release comes out as to how it's going to be received and how it's going to be reviewed by music journalists, or is that not something that really enters the equation?
I mean, a journalist like yourself, who we know.
Oh, that's nice of you to call me a journalist.
Well, whatever you are, we're you in that world is. We're more like-minded than it may seem, but I think we are.
Yeah,
we're not so concerned. We don't care about if someone's going to review our album to just say how shit it is.
Yeah, then
it's pretty obvious they either never liked the band or they only like Huey at this point, and that's fine. It doesn't concern us. We have faith in our fans and the ones that are still following us, and we honestly believe if they like the 2 EPs, then they're going to like this, because we know that the first EP took people by surprise, because they're like, what will this band sound like without Huey?
Right.
And they heard, I mean, it's different. Now, obviously, it's going to be a different band. You know what I mean? Van Halen without David Lee Roth was a different band, but it was still Van Halen.
Right.
So it's like, to some people might say, no way.
I'm a bit of a traditionalist, but of course I'm also partial, because I'm also a guy who does a podcast and puts a blonde wig on and makes the claim that I'm his illegitimate son. So I do have a little bit of a dog in the fight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, I mean,
and I got to say, growing up in Syracuse, we used to buy these bootleg tapes of cassettes of Van Halen concerts that
Yeah.
were recorded, where he would just go off on people in the crowd. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever heard any of those. They're probably all on YouTube now, but
No.
David Lee Roth, some of these, and there's probably on YouTube because people are clever. There's probably a compilation of all the best bits.
Yeah.
And I haven't searched.
I'll have to go look out. Yeah, I'll have to go look it up. And Dave is another one of those guys where I don't think he would ever say that he had the greatest classical voice, but just a great showman, though. And oddly enough, I live very close to. I'm kind of in between Utica and Syracuse, so we have a casino here. And in August, he's coming there, and I'm going to see him, which would have been great. It could have came full circle if I could have got the David Lee Roth interview, being as that I've donned this garb and hung my hat on being on being the illegitimate son of Diamond Dave. I don't think it'll happen, but I'm interested to go see Dave because he just did a festival, and Paul Stanley and some other guys in other bands have come out and said it's like the resurrection of Dave. He really sounds great right now. He seems like he's figured it out. And what he's done is, first of all, he's got this guy named Al Estrada who's really nailing the Eddie parts, but putting his own spin on it. And what Dave has done, he's found his register, and he also has 3 black soul singers singing with him. And he's doing a full Van Halen set of his era, and it sounds amazing.
I'm sure it does. And that's the thing. And I don't see how that's anything but a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially for younger generations.
Guy's 70 years old. I mean, hey, we should be celebrating this kind of stuff rather than running it down, you know?
He looks great. I mean, he had the one clip I saw last week or something, and he was getting so much hate for it. And I was like, wasn't feeling bad for him but it was like, I was feeling bad for the people giving the hate, because it's like, if you can't say something nice, go somewhere else. Go
right. No one's forcing you to watch this. Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is I think it's amazing because, I mean, there's so many bands that I never saw growing up that I'll never get the chance to see. That, you know, if you are a huge David Lee Roth fan, like your good self, that's great for you. I know I'll never be able to see Bob Marley play. The closest I could get to it is probably Damian Marley.
Right.
Even Marley, one of them, but it's the same thing. But I mean, it's, you know, it's, I don't know.
I'm happy to see these living legends still doing their thing, though. Like August, I'm going to go see David Lee Roth at this casino, 70 years old. Then the next month, me and my wife are going to see Steve Winwood, 76 years old. The guy's still out there killing it, and his voice still sounds amazing. I mean, you know, these living legends aren't going to be around forever, you know?
No, and so go see him. Go see him while you can. And that's the thing, is support music, young artists, old artists, whatever. It's like, music is a really important part of everyone's life. Everybody loves music. I've never met anyone who's like, oh, I don't listen to music. I know plenty of people who are like, oh, I don't watch TV. I'm one of them, more or less.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah.
But I just don't. Don't get me started on that one. Yeah. Frank was like, don't get all into conspiracy theories. I was like, oh, we'll save it for another podcast. But no, but like, that's one thing everyone has in common, and one of many things, is that, you know, music, there's music out there for everybody. So if people are performing, you don't get any better attachment to music than when it's in front of you and you're hearing it and it's loud as hell. I mean, kind of rock and roll philosophy, but it applies to any type of music. And I mean, that's really the main reason, you know, we are still doing this. And there's really no other reason why we're doing it. I mean, obviously we want to try and make a living doing it. You know, we still don't want to get real jobs. Right. But there is no better feeling, whether you're going to a show to see a band and the excitement as they come on, or, you know, being on stage performing for people. And we're blessed that it's like, you know, 30 years later, I'm going up there. I'm 53 years old. Am I 53 yet? Yeah, I did turn 53. And, you know, there's people who I met when we were coming around for Confind Yourself who are like in their 50s now. Right. And they're bringing their kids to our shows.
That's the cool thing. That's the thing that I saw at the Metallica concert. Now I'm seeing guys my age, man, bringing their 10, 11, 12-year, you know what I mean? So that's what's great, because you think this music will live forever. You know, for 50 years from now, people will be singing Master of Puppets. You know what I mean? They just will, you know?
Definitely that. Whether they'll be singing Scooby Snacks, I don't know. But Master of Puppets for sure. I mean, any Van Halen, David Lee Roth jam, everyone's going to forever. My kid loves that. Yeah. She has a triad of Van Halen jump, House of Pain jump around, and even the crisscross song.
Jump,
but she just, and those are like her jump songs. So it's like, the fact that she doesn't even know who David Lee, if I said, you know who David Lee Roth is? No, you know that song where you're going to everybody, jump.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I love that song. That's the guy singing it.
Right.
Oh.
And
So
I'm pretty sure that he would be happy that, 50 years from now, people might not remember him, but the song will stand the test of time.
yeah, I
You
mean
know.
that's the classic
I mean,
jam.
that's what you're really leaving behind. Now, I talked earlier in an interview about New York City, and kind of being like kind of like the birthplace of you guys. Even though you guys haven't been, in the city and use that as home base for so long, man.
Right.
How much of the influence of the city itself, because it is such an interesting place. I mean, I live upstate, which a lot of people don't even count that as New York, because when I tell people I'm New York, they instantly ask what borough. Like, there is another whole part of the state going upstate that doesn't have nothing to do with it. Like, I'm 4 hours from all the excitement or whatever. But how much of that still bleeds into the music? Because it is such an influential city, and you can certainly hear it in those early albums. Like, it's no surprise when someone says, hey, you put on those first couple albums and you say, yeah, these guys are based in New York. Oh yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Does that still bleed into the music?
I think it definitely bleeds into the music, just with how we write our songs. Like earlier you were saying, hearing all this different music in New York, and that's all these different types of people were living together in different boroughs. And out one window, you'd hear salsa music, and then you'd hear hip hop, and then you'd hear techno and house music, and then you could hear jazz music. So all those things were hitting your ears, giving you all this inspiration. I think obviously on those first few albums, a big, credit to Huey for the stories, the writing the New York stories, with the references to John Gotti, with the references to pizza, with the references to all those New York, nightlife things. But yeah, I think there still is that New York, the soul of New York, I think, is still in the music. I don't think that's how the formula was discovered, and how we kind of did the sound of the band, which I honestly, and I don't like to shine myself on. I hate it. And that's why when people say frontman, it's like, but it's like, but I don't want to sell myself short either, where it's like, a big part of the sound and fusing all the different things, which I never thought, oh, I'm going to fuse Latin, whatever. I had a stack of CDs. I would put stuff on, and it'd be Gary Wright. It would be The Doors. It would be Van Halen.
Yeah.
But would also be, it would be Quincy Jones, it would be Marvin Gaye, it would be even hip hop, albums, and just listen and grab inspiration, grab little bits of sounds and stuff. And that is still the same foundation of how the music is written, even on this new record. So I think when you put on our record, you'll instantly go, oh yeah, it's a Fun Lovin' Criminals record. Yeah, you might not hear Huey's voice. You might not, well, you won't hear Huey's voice, and you won't hear, you might not hear those stories of direct references to New York. But it's like I said earlier, I think that's a cop out, in the sense of we don't live there anymore. So that would be a bit too try hard.
Right.
So I think it was a natural, evolution for the band when writing new music, that it couldn't be songs about New York. And I'm not saying there's songs about South London where I live, but there are songs about where we came from, and where I came from, being obviously when I was living in Brooklyn and the band was starting. So there's a song on the album called Lovers Rock, which kind of is the story, my story of, our story, because it's my story that turns into our story when I met Frank, of, coming from Brooklyn and hearing basically everything we've been talking about, and how we came over to England, and then we found like minds there, and then we had these bonds that were built with people in the Midlands and Leicester, the mighty Leicester, but also in Manchester and other places. And, and that's, I think that's still in it, but it's, and again, I don't want to give too much credit to Huey. God knows he don't need it, but it's like, he did come up with some great stories about New York at the times we were both living there and working in these nightclubs. And I think it's something's great. We still can play all those songs, which is awesome. But I think it'd be hard for us to write an album with all New York songs when none of us lived there. And the few times we've been to New York in the past few years, it's just the city's changed. So it's like, it's not really, I wouldn't want to talk about that New York. And I can reminisce about New York all day long. But we've kind of done that for the past 5-6 albums, where this record seems to be for us more of a like, here's where we are now, there's where we've been, this is what's gotten us here, and let's see what happens moving forward. Because I don't think this will be the end of Fun Lovin' Criminals after this record. Frank and we've already got another 5, 6 songs that we didn't put on this record because, you know, you could easily put out a record with 15, 16 songs, but like you were saying earlier, it's like, do people even have the attention span to put a
They
record?
don't. Yeah, I know.
They
And that's the
definitely
sad
don't.
part. That's the sad part. They don't. They almost don't dive into those quote unquote deep tracks anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
Like they go and they find like, you know, they listen to the first 15 seconds and say, yeah, that one hits me. I like that one. That's going to go on my playlist. Yeah, I'm going to grab that one. Okay, so there's the 3 that I like, you know, and then,
And
you know,
that's it.
and they dismiss everything else.
I think vinyl is kind of the saving grace for the dog's talking to me. Anyway, I think vinyl is the saving grace for us because it's something, especially for older people, they put the record on. The last thing they're going to do is get out of their chair until it's done 20 minutes later.
Right.
So, and I think it's amazing for us that we're, you know, still putting out vinyl because vinyl sounds great, and I love the physical product. But you know, you and I are from that.
Oh yeah.
time.
Yeah, I remember how important the physical product was, man. And I just sold a bunch of my CDs the other day because I had them in a big tote under the bed, and I thought, you know what? There's very few stores left that are still giving you money for CDs, but there are people out there, and I'll fully admit the way I'm consuming music now, it's in my car, it's hooking up my phone, you know what I mean? But I thought there's people out there that love these, man, and I've kept them in good condition. Let somebody else enjoy them, you know what I mean? Like, why are they just in a tote collecting dust underneath my bed? You know what I mean? You know, there's a certain kind of melancholy when you're parting with them, you know what I mean? And you're kind of saying, oh, geez, I've amassed this collection or whatever, man. But I don't have a CD player in my house, and they're not even putting them in cars anymore over here, you know, in the States. So basically, I've just got these, I got a tote under my bed that's like a giant paperweight, you know? I mean, it's what am I doing with these things? You know what I mean? But there are people who enjoy them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny, we do get the request every now and then. I think we've had 4. And it's like one guy in Italy, one guy in Holland, one guy in Belgium, one guy in America, all like, why isn't the album on CD?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because we don't want to print up 500 of them.
Yeah.
You know,
and have you 4 be the only guys that take them.
Yeah. So, but there's a company out of London called Elastic Stage.
Okay.
That they've got a new philosophy. It's not a good one. I'll be amazed if they're still in business in a year or two, just because everyone's using them now. So their wait times, but they'll pay to press up one vinyl for you, or they'll pay to press up one CD for you. The flip side, and for young bands that don't have any money, or any bands that don't have money to press their own vinyl or make their own CDs or whatever, or don't want to, you know, make 500 CDs, only sell 10 of them. It's a great. The business model works, and they have some patent on how they press the vinyl, and it sounds good if it's not all messed up. We've had some issues with certain vinyl with them, but they're doing great. The trade-off is they get like 95% of any profit.
Right.
So it's like, which is like, okay. I was talking about it with other people, and I was like, you know how much money you're going to make off of that vinyl? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's probably pretty good. I was like, you're making $5 and they're making like $25.
Right.
But if you want your record on vinyl, then they'll do it for you. And it's cool. But I mean, I just think there's something about, like you're saying, the physical product, because streaming, I mean, I see it all the time. And I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. You know, I'll hear a song and I'll play it in the car, and I'll usually, because I'm old school, so I'll play and listen to the whole thing. But like listening to a whole album, if it's a band I like, or if it's a band someone's like, yo, just put that album on start to finish, and I trust their opinion, then I'll do it, you know, because it's an experience. You know, I don't want to go to the movies and just show up in the last 10 minutes of the movie. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Or
but I did like the physical product, because you used to open up and really pour over those liner notes, and you look at the other bands, you know, that the band would thank that they've been on tour with, and that would inform a lot of your musical taste, because you'd be like, oh, look, Metallica is thanking all these thrash bands in here. Now I'm going to go check out all those bands too. You know? Yeah,
those days are over now, and that's probably thanks to iTunes and Spotify, because now all it is a cover, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing, is you get a cover, and like iTunes used to do a thing where you get a digital booklet, but it never really worked unless you were on your laptop.
Right.
And everyone's just on their laptop, is their phone or their iPad. So it's kind of a shame. And, you know, for us, again, vinyl, it's great, but it's like to try and like press up all the lyrics and everything like that. No, we've always wanted people to kind of interpret it their own way, but it's something Frank and I've done on this record, which we thought was cool. We'll see what people think of it. Well, we kind of when we put the record out, we wrote up this like dossier of what the songs mean to us.
Okay.
We're going to put that up. I mean, it's just like a PDF file or something, but people can read. So it's like, you know, for me, I love the liner notes and especially the thank yous, but like the lyrics again was never something I really got into. I always sort of took my own thing from when I listened to music and stuff. And as I got older, I would listen to stuff and go, wow, I didn't know that song was about that. But it's cool. And that's where you're always learning new things. What is this? My dog's acting crazy. I do apologize. I should have put it.
No, that's okay. And so before I let you out of here, the album comes out August 29th.
Yeah, so next Friday, not this coming Friday, but next Friday, the 23rd of May, the single, a little bit further's out.
Okay.
And the album's available for pre-order and all that pre-save stuff. And we've got like some fun videos and stuff that we're doing. We're just trying, you know, content. So it's amazing that, you know, this is a very helpful tool for us, you know, talking to you about the album stuff, because you're really the first one we're doing it with. So, and then, the tour starts in September and we'll see where that takes us. So it's still like 3 months away before the album comes out, but we have some summer festivals and just trying to get, I mean, we've got a tour through early December. So, and that's hitting up the spots that we know we can do, which is Europe, the UK and stuff. But we are talking to people about coming back to America. So we'll see if we can get a show that isn't just in New York. Maybe get a Syracuse show. They got Lost Horizon. Is that
Lost Horizon is still going? Lost
Really?
Lost Horizon is still the Lost Horizon is still going, man. I just you know, and the thing is, the Lost Horizon was the Lost Horizon way back when I was a kid, and then it did change a couple times, and now it is back to the Lost Horizon. It was 32 degrees. It was Club Tundra. You know, it got into a couple different ownerships and a couple different looks, but they are back to booking like, you know what I mean, like what we knew the Lost Horizon back in the day. You know what I mean? A lot of thrash, a lot of metal, a lot of rock shows. I got the chance last year to see Buck Cherry there before they went out on a big tour. So, you know, I think they wanted to kind of, it was kind of like a knock the rust off type show, and seeing them in a cool little intimate setting like that was awesome.
I remember it's a great venue because I know you come in and then you go to the left and there's the stage and has that big bar in the middle.
Very low ceiling. It just rumbles. The whole place rumbles. But they've got a couple other places out there. They got the Westcott Theater. They have a new place downtown Syracuse called the Song and Dance.
Okay.
That's kind of like, you know, actually the Song and Dance has kind of been taking a little bit of the shine from the Lost Horizon, because I'll go to their website like periodically to try to stay tapped in on what's coming. And I noticed the shows have slowed down at the Lost Horizon, but there's a big itinerary over at the Song and Dance.
Well, chances are it would be FLC at Lost Horizon then.
That would be great. Oh, yeah, that would be great. But, yeah, I mean, it feels old school. It feels right. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to get, we want to get some shows up in at least definitely Toronto. So I know that's always a big hit for us back in the day, is we'd always kind of play. We did New York and then we'd go play like Albany or something. So hopefully we could get up there. It'd be great. It'd be great to meet you.
Listen, you either got to do the Lost Horizon or my backyard. Those are your options. One of the two.
We'll take the backyard. It's an easier gig.
I mean, at least you'll get fed. I'll throw some stuff on the grill. We got to try to make it a summer show. You know how brutal New York is in the winter.
Yeah. No,
you don't want to be up here from the months of November to April.
I know. I did that a few years.
Steer clear. I mean, it's starting to get nice here now, thankfully. And me and my wife are starting to drag everything out of the garage and getting the pool up and prepared and ready, because the grandkids are going to want to swim. So the grandkids will jump in when the water's 74 degrees. They don't care. You know what I mean?
I know they don't. No, they don't.
I mean, I'm waiting until it's much closer to 80. You know what I mean? Like
June, though. For you, that's in like a month, right? It'll be hot up there.
Yeah, it'll be hot up there, man. This was a big honor, man. I can't leave you on that street corner much longer. You've loitered there for almost 90 minutes, man. Someone's going to come in. Someone's going to come and pick you up or ticket you or something, man. Yeah, I mean, you've got that criminal element look, and you've been on that corner for a long time. So, I mean,
man, thank you so much.
Yeah, this was an honor, man. I finally have gotten all three of you guys, man. And you guys are the best guests, man, and just the best to chop it up with, man. I mean, I'm a longtime fan, man. And more importantly, you know, this is a little small independent podcast. I don't have the subscribers and the viewership that a lot of other ones have. Even my boxing one, I tell boxers when they come on here, you know, I'm not like fighthype.com or like some of these other big ones, you know what I mean? Where I'm going to put your interview up in, you know, 2 million people are going to come and view it or whatever, man. So having a homegrown podcast like this and have guys, like you and just other artists that I've had have come on here, man, when they pop up on here, I'm just like blown away sometimes and just, humbled that you guys would actually come and chop it up with me, so it means a lot to me too.
Oh, that's all good, man. You're a proper spirit, man. We appreciate that. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
And, we'll catch up soon, man. So
absolutely. I've got management's email, man. So after the album's out, man, we'll come back on and we'll talk about it again, man. I got to get all three of you guys on here at the same time.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Well, we got all summer, so we'll tell management to send you a link to the album. And
I was actually blown away. And please give my regards to management, because I had talked to management about specifically having you on, and this was way back at the beginning of the year, and they said, we'd like to set Fast up to do the interviews closer to when the album comes out. So then I got preoccupied with getting back into. I kind of had two lanes for a while. I'll get into the spirit of doing the music podcast, and then I love boxing. I'm passionate about boxing. It's my favorite sport. So then I'll fall back into that lane, and those interviews will be trickling in and really coming in. And in full disclosure, I had forgotten, and your management actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, it's May. We talked about this back in January, man. We'd like to set Fast up to do it," which really blew me away. I mean,
that's awesome. Well, Wayne is a good guy. Wayne Lazar is our man in Hawaii, and he's we'll get him to email you after this, and he'll explain it all to you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, but this was really fun for me, Fast, really, man. And I appreciate you being so generous with your time, man. Hour and a half, man. Just a great talk, man. I really, man, it was amazing for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And
we'll talk again soon. And best of luck, man. I'm excited. I can't wait for the album, man. I can't wait for all the stuff to start dropping, the videos, the singles, man. I'm excited, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Yeah. Good talking to you, Fast. All right. Later, buddy.
Bye, bro.
And there he goes, folks. The legendary Brian Fast LEISER from Fun Lovin' Criminals, man. And I cannot believe how great these guys have been. All three of them, man. Naim Cortazzi, Frank Benbini, and, of course, Fast, man. They have just been staunch supporters, man. Whenever I've reached out to them to have them on the podcast, man, they've come through in spades, man. And that means the world, as I just expressed there at the end of the interview, man. For me, having a little independent, homegrown podcast, man, just grinding, hustling, reaching out to guests, doing a lot of legwork, not having a lot of connections and inroads, it just means a lot, man. When these people pop up on the screen and they're here in a room with me, and Fast just did an hour and a half with me, man. Poor guy standing on that freaking street corner the whole time, man. God bless him, man. Man, that was a ton of fun, man, with a true musical genius. I know he wouldn't say that when he was on here, man, but I mean, Fast has been spearheading that band, and I don't want to discredit the other guys, man, because what they bring to the table is incredible, man. But Fast has been there since the beginning, 1993 to the present time, man. 30 plus years, man, and the guy just does everything. Plays the bass, plays the trumpet, plays the harmonica, the keyboards. Now is the lead vocalist. Now that Huey Morgan is no longer in the band, and they continue to soldier on. They continue to get people coming out in spades, especially the European market. So come on, America. If we get Fun Lovin' Criminals dates, show the fuck out. Come on, man. Let's fucking show these guys, man, that, we can bring it just as good as the European audiences can, man. If we get dates booked here, man, show out, man, because what the Fun Lovin' Criminals bring in the live setting is super fun, man. You will be bouncing, you will be jumping, you will be bobbing your head, you will be, as Fast said, man, grooving, man, because that's all you can do to Fun Lovin' Criminals music, man. And if you're a lover of any genre of music, man, you will be pleased because, as I said, you will hear elements of reggae and hip hop and dance hall music and R&B and hip hop and soul and funk and alt rock and guitar driven rock. So there is literally something for everybody when you dive into the Fun Lovin' Criminals catalog or individual albums or individual songs, man. If you go on a deep dive and you really get in there, man, you will hear layers and layers of what I would refer to as genius level music production, amazing craftsmanship of songs. So I love these guys. I could sit here and keep gushing and gushing and gushing, man. Just absolutely honored, man. And as I said, I've had Naim on, I've had Uncle Frank on, and now this completes the circle. Having Fast on is absolutely amazing. And big thank you, man, to their management for reaching out to me and reminding me that I wanted to have Fast on back in the beginning of the year. It was put on the back burner because the album is coming out August 29th, folks. The first full-length studio album in quite a while, man. Album number 7, I believe, of the full-length albums, man. A Matter of Time is coming out. Yes, 2025, we are getting new Fun-Lovin' Criminals music, man. As I said, drops on August 29th. So be anticipating that. And of course, as Fast said, be on the lookout for videos, singles, various things dropping. You can go to their website. You guys all know how to use Google. If you don't, God help you, man. I don't know how you're surviving in this world. Go Google Fun-Lovin' Criminals. They've got a website. They've got a Facebook. They're tied into all the social medias. You'll find them on Instagram. You'll find them anywhere. And news of all this stuff coming down the pipe will be on there. So it shouldn't be very hard for you to find this stuff. So again, huge thank you to Fast for coming on here, man, from the Fun-Lovin' Criminals. An amazing conversation. We were all over the board with it, folks. Tell me in the comment section what we didn't talk about. Everything from New York and pizza to Prince to sampling to crime to we covered it all, folks. We covered it all. And that's what we do here, man, on Pod Scum. We're all over the board with it, man. You know that. Whether you're on the YouTube channel, and don't get confused, 2 separate playlists. Pod Scum, which this will fall under, and of course, Off the Couch Boxing. But equally amazing podcasts, 2 of them on there, and this will be the latest installment on Pod Scum. We took it back. I know we've been focusing on Off the Couch Boxing for a while, but hey, when management hits you up with an email and says Fast is ready, hey, you pull out Pod Scum and you have Fast on. Simple as that. No questions asked. The boys in Fun-Lovin' Criminals have been awesome to this podcast. They've been receptive. They've come on. They've chopped it up. We've had a ball. Last time I talked to Naim, he sent me out a swag bag. I've got a nice keychain lanyard. I've got a bag. I've got a T-shirt. I've got just all kinds of cool stuff, man. So the fellas have just been great, and they continue to be great. And they will continue to come on this podcast anytime they want. No questions asked. So I had a blast talking with him, and I hope you guys enjoy that episode. And more importantly, go out and support the Fun-Lovin' Criminals. Go out and tap into the new album coming out August 29th entitled A Matter of Time. And of course, you can always go back and peruse the entire discography, going all the way back to Come Find Yourself, which started it all back in 1996, which hard to believe is turning 30 years old next year, with those classics that we all know, Fun-Lovin' Criminal, Scooby Snacks. I mean, the list goes on and on. The albums are amazing. The music is amazing. And like I said, there's certainly something for everybody when you dive into the Fun-Lovin' Criminals musical palette, if you will. So hope you guys enjoyed that episode. That's another one in the books for Pod Scum, another classic, another banger. Book it, print it, and put it out. And hopefully you guys will tap in and watch it. And again, make sure to go to the Pod Scum. Now currently, not to confuse anybody, the Facebook page is the Off the Couch Boxing Facebook page, where this will be advertised. And the channel is currently called Off the Couch Boxing on YouTube, but there is a separate playlist. Make note of this, with the previous 278. This will make 279th Pod Scum episodes with amazing artists, musicians, incredible conversations. I don't want that to get swept under the rug because there's been a lot of Off the Couch Boxing content coming out right now, but do not sleep on the Pod Scum podcast, because again, it is a treasure trove of amazing interviews with people in rock bands, alt rock bands, thrash bands, death metal, punk rockers. I mean, there's something there for everybody, much like the Off the Couch Boxing has the OGs, the legends of the sport, and the new young up and coming fighters. Something for everybody, whatever your taste is. Pod Scum offers even more than that. We are all over the place, many different genres of music. And of course, you will find past episodes with the boys in Fun Loving Criminals. There's a couple episodes up there with Naim, a couple episodes up there with Uncle Frank. And now you will get an episode up there with Fast. And it will be up there very fast. Probably within a day or two of the recording of this, which you guys have no idea of, but that would be May 12th. Within days, this will be up, and make sure to be looking for it, and make sure to be looking for the new album. And that's another one in the books, man. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, a big thank you to Fast from Fun Loving Criminals, and I will see you guys on the next one. Later.